So I've been talking about hybrid products for several years now. The problem with hybrid consumer products is actually pretty simple. They're trying to be too many things to too many people. And what happens with a hybrid product is they're trying to be the best of both worlds. And more specifically, the problem with a hybrid product is you're trying to take two customer segments and sort of put them together as one. But the trouble is that there aren't that many customers that really kind of mesh themselves into that one new sort of blob of a customer segment that companies are looking for. Most of the time, even though companies are desperately trying to maybe put two customer segments together, it typically doesn't work out. And even if it does work out, it only works out in the short term. In the long term, it typically does not work out. There are a couple of exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, it doesn't. So I wanted to go through a couple of quick examples for you, and I will make this relatively quick, so hopefully you'll watch this whole thing. So one of the best examples is a two-in-one laptop. So you all know what this is all about. A two-in-one laptop is really trying to be both, of course, a laptop and a tablet. The trouble is it's not as good of a laptop as it could be, and it's not as good of a tablet as it could be. Now, customers who accept that from the start, then I would sort of take away what I said when I meant a problem with hybrid products, and maybe, as long as you acknowledge it, well, then maybe there's no problem. But that's only if you accept that from the start. So if you're looking for a laptop slash tablet and you don't want to have two devices, whether you have to carry two devices depending on what you do throughout the day, or even if you don't have to carry around two devices, if you don't want two devices or you don't want to pay for two devices, okay, as long as you understand that a compromise is going to happen, then fine. But this is essentially what the problem with two-in-one laptops are. I'll talk about phones really quick, and I'll just use one example because prior to adapting and adopting iPhones, I was a huge BlackBerry person. And this was one of BlackBerry's last phones before they sort of imploded back about 7, 8, 9 years ago. And, now I know that they've sort of come back in their own way with a sort of different business. But this was the BlackBerry Torch. And this was really a pathetic attempt to be two things to everybody. They said, hey, when you want a touchscreen and a full touchscreen like an iPhone, well, we'll give you that. And when you want the classic BlackBerry keyboard that you all seem to love, well, just flip it up and we'll give you that too. And no one really bought any of this, and this phone never caught on. It seems as though on the surface it would be a nice idea. It was actually not a good idea. And I'm not going to get into a whole thing on BlackBerry because actually I could do a nice little video on BlackBerry and strategy and do that separately. But one of the biggest problems with BlackBerry, which by the way manifested itself in this phone right here, was BlackBerry forgot its roots. They were trying to compete with iPhone in a way that they weren't ready to do, and they forgot that customers, one of the things that everybody to this day will still fondly talk about is how much they adored the physical BlackBerry keyboard. There was nothing like a typing experience that would even come close to what a physical BlackBerry keyboard could do back in the day. But this was really pathetic, trying to be both things. Okay, the next example is, and I'm so sorry for saying this, but a category. So I like cars, but I like cars and I drive cars. I'm not a fan of SUVs. Sorry, I know this entire country, the US, loves SUVs, but an SUV, at least I have more respect for an SUV than I do a CUV. So a CUV, or sometimes referred to as a crossover utility vehicle, or just a crossover, is really also trying to be two things at once, and it really can't do that. It's kind of saying, look, we know that a lot of people, especially Americans, want and love and crave SUVs, but there are some people who, for whatever reason, an SUV is either too large or it's too intimidating, or in terms of the fuel economy, etc. So we'll actually do something that's in between an SUV and a car, and we'll do a CUV. Honda, to an extent, has had some success with this, and they've done a couple of CUV models. I mean, they sort of kind of were one of the um, first players in the CUV market. So in some regards, they invented it to an extent. And I think the fact that they invented it to an extent is really one of the only reasons why they're somewhat successful. But generally speaking, CUVs are not successful because nobody really wants them. And again, for those who want a car, you're going to be disappointed because it's just not enough car. And for those who want an SUV, you're going to be disappointed because it just doesn't feel like enough of an SUV at the end of the day. It's this sort of weird middle. And what often happens in the weird middle is it's kind of blobby and it's undefined. And that's the trouble with the middle, to be really honest about it. And then one last one, which people actually don't really think about. So, the majority of people, at least in this country, in the US, whether you buy or lease a brand new car or whether you buy a used car, or anytime you go and buy a new set of tires, we're going to buy all season tires. But technically, and not that many people sort of see it this way, but all season tires are actually also a hybrid product. So you're taking a summer tire profile and a winter tire profile and kind of putting them together to make a year round, all season profile, which generally does it work? Yes, it does. Most of us have all season tires on our cars. I have all season tires on my car, but it technically is a compromise. If you were to put summer tires on your car in the summer, and if you were to put winter tires on your car in the winter, they would technically perform better for you, and your car would technically handle and perform better. Not only is it a different tread design and tread profile, but the actual rubber and the polymers that kind of the compounds that a tire is actually made of, these are different compounds depending on whether the pavement is warmer or the pavement is colder, and it's not just about tread design. So but we also do a compromise on this as well, so it's just something that's good to be knowledgeable about. Hope this helped, but this is the general concern with hybrid products. So if you know what you're getting into, that's great, but most people really kind of don't know what they're getting into. And even if it seems to be a good thing in the short term, in the long term, most customers really are sort of put off by hybrid products because in most cases they don't really work. So send me your comments and questions, and each week you'll get a chance to win a copy of one of my books. Your choice, either my book on presentation skills or business writing skills.